In the vast reaches of space, the Galactic Empire ruled with an iron fist. Their ships patrolled the stars, and their soldiers were feared across the galaxy. For centuries, they had crushed every enemy, and no one dared to challenge their power. But now, in the shadowy corners of their empire, a warning echoed through the cold void. On the bridge of the Imperial starship Mighty Sword, Commander Varric sat, reviewing the latest reports. His crew moved around him, busy with their tasks, but a sense of unease filled the air. They had received a strange message from a distant sector. The message was brief and cryptic, warning of an approaching fleet of ships. "Commander, the message is clear. They claim a human fleet is coming this way," an officer said, his voice trembling slightly. Varric scoffed, shaking his head. "Humans? A fleet? This must be a joke. They are a primitive race. There is no way they could build anything powerful enough to challenge us." His laughter echoed through the bridge, but deep down, he felt a nagging doubt. Humans were weak, they thought, a species that barely scratched the surface of space travel. Their technology was outdated compared to the Empire's advanced ships and weapons. Yet, there was something unsettling about the warning. The crew glanced at each other, unsure whether to laugh or feel worried. They had never seen a human ship, and to imagine a fleet of them was laughable. Varric decided to dismiss the warning. "Set course for the Outer Rim. We have more important matters to deal with than these childish threats." As the Mighty Sword surged forward, a small ship drifted in the darkness of space, unnoticed. It was a human vessel, the Endeavor, equipped with advanced technology that was far beyond what the Empire had anticipated. Inside the ship, Captain Sarah had received the same warning. She and her crew had worked tirelessly for years to build this fleet in secret, preparing for the day when they could confront the Galactic Empire. "Captain, the scanners show the Empire is moving towards us," one of her officers said. "They don't seem to believe we are a real threat." Sarah smiled, her determination shining bright. "Good. Let them underestimate us. We have trained for this moment. Our ships are ready, and our tactics are better than theirs." The crew nodded, feeling a wave of confidence wash over them. They had studied the Empire's strategies and knew their weaknesses. Humanity may be smaller in numbers, but they were fierce and clever. Meanwhile, back on the Mighty Sword, Varric continued to prepare for their journey into the Outer Rim. He felt secure in his ship, surrounded by the best technology the Empire could offer. "Increase speed. Let's get out of this boring sector and into the action," he commanded, eager to leave the strange warning behind. Hours passed, and the Mighty Sword flew through the stars. Varric and his crew were relaxed, joking about the warning. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the ship, shattering the calm atmosphere. "Sir, we have multiple ships on the scanners," an officer shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. "Where?" Varric demanded, rushing to the console. He could hardly believe his eyes. Before him, on the screen, appeared a fleet of human ships, each one sleek and well-armed. They moved with precision and confidence, unlike anything Varric had ever seen from humans before. "This cannot be. They are really here," he exclaimed, shock coursing through his body. The crew was silent, their earlier laughter replaced by a cold fear. "Alert the fleet. Prepare for battle," Varric shouted, trying to regain control of the situation. His heart raced. The humans had arrived, and they looked ready for war. Meanwhile, Captain Sarah watched the Empire's flagship on her screen. Her heart raced with excitement. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. Prepare to engage the enemy. Remember your training. Stay calm and follow my orders, she instructed her crew, her voice steady and confident. As the human ships approached, the Empire's crew scrambled to ready their weapons. Varric could not shake the feeling of disbelief. How could humanity have built such a fleet? The two sides faced each other in the vast emptiness of space. Varric's crew had been trained for every possible battle scenario, but facing a human fleet like this was something they had never considered. "Open fire!" Varric commanded, hoping to assert his dominance quickly. The Empire's cannons roared, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts toward the approaching human ships. Sarah watched the incoming fire with keen eyes. Evasive maneuvers. Split into formation, she ordered. The Endeavor and her fleet moved swiftly, dodging the blasts with unexpected agility. As the humans countered, their weapons fired back, striking the Empire's ships with precision. Varric's disbelief turned into panic as he witnessed his crew's ships being damaged. "Deploy the fighters," he shouted, desperately trying to turn the tide. But the human fleet was relentless, their attacks synchronized and strategic. Each explosion lit up the dark void of space, painting a picture of chaos. On the Endeavor, cheers erupted as they successfully hit their targets. "We are winning. Keep pushing forward," Sarah shouted, feeling the adrenaline rush through her veins. The Galactic Empire, once seen as unbeatable, now faced an enemy they had underestimated. The tide of battle shifted quickly, and fear gripped Varric as he realized they were in real danger. In that moment, the warning message echoed in his mind. The humans were no longer the primitive species he had laughed at. They had come for a reason, and they were not going to back down. As the battle raged on, the fate of the Empire hung in the balance. The galaxy watched in shock as the once mighty Empire fought against the very people they had dismissed for so long. The arrival of humanity's fleet had marked the beginning of a new era, one that would change the course of history forever. The battle raged on in the cold depths of space. Captain Sarah stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, her heart racing with excitement and determination. She could see the Imperial ships on her display, their powerful cannons firing wildly in an attempt to defend against her fleet. But Sarah and her crew were ready. They had trained for this moment, and now it was time to show the Galactic Empire what humanity was truly capable of. "Hold your positions. Prepare to engage," Sarah commanded, her voice steady. Her crew was focused, their eyes glued to their screens, ready to follow her orders. The Endeavor glided smoothly through space, darting between the incoming energy blasts from the Empire's ships. "Captain, we have 2 enemy ships closing in on our left flank," shouted an officer. "Evasive maneuvers. Split into 2 groups and flank them," Sarah replied, her mind racing. She watched as her crew quickly responded, dividing their forces and moving with agility. The human ships were smaller, but far more agile than the bulky Imperial vessels. As the Endeavor danced through the chaos, it dodged incoming fire and took aim at the nearest Imperial ship. "Fire!" Sarah shouted, and her crew unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts. The bolts struck the enemy ship directly, creating a brilliant explosion. The crew cheered as they saw the Imperial ship break apart. But the battle was far from over. Varric, the commander of the mighty sword, was in disbelief. His flagship was taking heavy damage from the unexpected counterattack. "We need to regroup," he shouted to his officers, trying to keep the situation under control. "Launch all available fighters and engage those human ships." As Imperial fighters launched from the mighty sword, Sarah noticed the change in tactics. "Incoming fighters at 12 o'clock, shouted one of her officers. "Prepare to engage. Stick together and watch each other's backs," Sarah commanded. The crew nodded, their expressions serious. They knew the danger, but they also knew their mission. The human ships flew into formation, ready to face the incoming Imperial fighters. As they approached, Sarah's heart raced with anticipation. She focused on her target, steadying her aim. "Now!" she yelled, and her crew opened fire. Energy blasts filled the void, lighting up the dark space around them. The 2 sides clashed in a flurry of explosions. The human ships worked as a team, moving together to dodge attacks and strike back. Sarah maneuvered the Endeavor gracefully, avoiding incoming fire while returning shots to the enemy fighters. "Stay close, everyone. We can't let them break our formation," Sarah shouted, keeping her crew focused. The Endeavor shot past one of the enemy fighters, narrowly avoiding a blast. She turned quickly and fired back, hitting the Imperial ships squarely. One by one, the Imperial fighters fell. Each explosion brought cheers from the crew, boosting their spirits. The tide was turning in favor of humanity, and they could feel it. "Captain, the enemy is breaking formation. They're starting to retreat," an officer called out, excitement in his voice. "Don't let up. Press the attack," Sarah shouted. They had to take advantage of the enemy's fear. As the battle continued, the Endeavour found itself facing off against a larger Imperial cruiser. Sarah could see the imposing ship on her screen, and she knew this would be a tough fight. "We need to be smart about this. Let's distract them while we take out their shields," she instructed. The crew quickly followed her lead. Some of their ships moved in close, drawing the attention of the cruiser, while others focused their fire on the enemy shield generators. Sarah watched intently as the enemy ship fired back, but the human ships danced around its attacks. "Now, target the shield generators," she yelled. The crew fired their weapons, and the explosions lit up the darkness of space. One of the shield generators on the cruiser went dark, and Sarah felt a surge of hope. "Keep it up. We're getting through," she encouraged. As the cruiser weakened, the remaining human ships joined the attack, launching a coordinated assault. The Imperial cruiser struggled to defend itself, and within moments it was engulfed in a massive explosion. The crew erupted in cheers, their confidence soaring. "We're winning! We're really winning!" an officer shouted, his face beaming with pride. But Sarah knew better than to celebrate too soon. The Empire was still strong, and they would not give up easily. "Stay alert. They may regroup and come back stronger," she reminded her crew. As the battle raged on, the once dominant Imperial fleet was slowly being pushed back. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. With every victory, the humans grew bolder, and their resolve deepened. Sarah looked out at the stars, knowing that this was only the beginning. Humanity had struck back, and there was no turning back now. The Galactic Empire would learn that humans were not to be underestimated. They were ready to fight for their freedom and to reclaim their place in the galaxy. The battle continued to rage across the dark expanse of space. The once feared Galactic Empire was now on the defensive, struggling against the surprising strength of humanity. Captain Sarah stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, her eyes focused on the chaotic scene unfolding before her. The crew was buzzing with excitement, but Sarah felt a tension in the air. "Captain, we have reports that several enemy ships are trying to regroup," one of her officers announced, urgency in his voice. "Keep an eye on them. We can't let them regroup. If they do, they will strike back harder," Sarah replied, her heart racing. The humans had gained ground, but they were not out of danger yet. Across the battlefield, Commander Varric of the Mighty Sword was growing desperate. His flagship had suffered significant damage, and his crew was shaken. "Get me a status report," he shouted, his voice rising above the noise of the bridge. "Sir, we've lost 3 ships and many more are damaged. The humans are relentless," an officer responded, panic creeping into his voice. Varric felt a wave of anger wash over him. "We cannot allow this to happen. We must show them that the Empire will not fall to a primitive race." He took a deep breath to calm himself. "Reinforce our defenses and prepare to counterattack. We will show them the might of the Empire." As the Imperial forces scrambled to regroup, Sarah saw an opportunity. "Now is our chance. Let's push forward and keep the pressure on them," she commanded. The crew cheered, energized by her words. "Captain, we've spotted 2 enemy cruisers trying to flank us," another officer warned. "Divert our course and engage those cruisers," Sarah ordered. The Endeavour veered sharply, her crew moving swiftly to execute her orders. As they approached the cruisers, Sarah felt the adrenaline pumping through her veins. "We can do this. We've trained for moments like this. Remember, aim for the weak points." She encouraged her crew, and they responded with nods and determined expressions. The Endeavour fired its weapons, striking the first cruiser with a barrage of energy blasts. The ship shook as the blasts hit their mark, but the cruiser was not done yet. It returned fire, and the Endeavour shuddered as a beam of energy struck its shields. "Status report," Sarah shouted, gripping the console tightly. "Shields are holding, but they are weakening," an officer replied. "Divert more power to the shields." "We can't let them breach our defenses," she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The crew worked quickly, redistributing energy throughout the ship. They could feel the tension in the air as the enemy cruisers continued to fire. Sarah focused on the second cruiser, determined to break through their defenses. "Let's flank them. Aim for the engines," she ordered. The crew responded with determination, aligning their ship for a better shot. As the Endeavor moved into position, Sarah took a deep breath. "Now, fire," she shouted. Energy blasts erupted from the ship, hitting the cruiser's engines. The explosion sent shockwaves through space, and the cruiser began to drift helplessly. "Direct hit, Captain. They are losing power." An officer called out, excitement in his voice. "Good. Keep up the pressure," Sarah replied, feeling a surge of hope. But just as victory seemed within reach, the mighty sword and its remaining forces launched a surprise attack. "Captain, the mighty sword is coming in fast," someone shouted, panic rising in the bridge. "Prepare to evade. Get ready to return fire," Sarah commanded, knowing they had to act quickly. The Endeavor turned sharply, trying to avoid the incoming blasts from the flagship. The crew fired back, but the Imperial ship was powerful and had the advantage of size. Energy beams flashed across the screen, illuminating the darkness of space. "Shields are down to 20%. An officer yelled, fear in his voice. Sarah gritted her teeth. "Stay focused. We can't back down now." Just then, a bright flash erupted from the mighty sword. A nearby human ship had been struck, and the crew watched in horror as it exploded in a fireball. Sarah's heart sank. They were losing ships, and the Empire was fighting back with a fury she hadn't expected. "Return fire! Aim for their weapons!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the fear. The crew fired again, determined to turn the tide of battle. The Imperial ship shuddered as blasts struck its hull. But Varric was not ready to give up. "We will not be defeated by these insects," he roared, his eyes blazing with determination. In the chaos of battle, Sarah kept her focus. She knew they had to hold their ground. "Hold together. We need to make it through this," she urged her crew, who were now fighting with everything they had. With every blast, the Endeavor shook, but Sarah felt a spark of hope. Humanity had faced impossible odds before, and they had always found a way. The Empire might be strong, but they were not invincible. As the desperate fight continued, the fate of both sides hung in the balance. The crew of the Endeavor fought with all their might, knowing that their freedom depended on their courage. The Galactic Empire had underestimated them, and now they would learn the true strength of humanity. The battle continued to rage in the cold void of space, but slowly the tide began to turn. Captain Sarah watched the chaos unfold from the bridge of the Endeavor. The crew had fought bravely, but the Imperial forces were still fierce. Sarah felt the weight of their struggle on her shoulders, knowing that every decision could mean victory or defeat. "Captain, we're down to half our shields," an officer shouted, concern etched on his face. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding. "We need to hold on just a little longer." "We can't let them break our formation," she replied, her voice steady. Suddenly, the view screen lit up with a burst of light as an enemy cruiser exploded. "Yes, another one down," cheered one of the crew members. The Endeavor had managed to damage the enemy forces significantly, but the fight was not over yet. "Stay focused. They are regrouping," Sarah called out, urging her crew to remain vigilant. The Galactic Empire was not about to back down easily. On the other side of the battlefield, Commander Varric was furious. His flagship, the Mighty Sword, had suffered heavy damage, and now the humans were gaining ground. "Rally the remaining ships," he barked at his officers. "We will not let these pests claim victory." As the Imperial forces began to regroup, "They're trying to concentrate their fire. Get ready to split into 2 groups," she commanded. The crew sprang into action, adjusting their strategies to counter the Empire's move. "Captain, we're receiving a message from the Alliance," an officer announced. "On screen," Sarah replied. The view screen shifted to show a familiar face, Admiral Thompson, the leader of the human forces. "Captain Sarah, we're here to assist." We've brought reinforcements, the Admiral said, determination in his eyes. Sarah felt a surge of hope. Thank you, Admiral. We need all the help we can get. The Empire is regrouping for a counterattack, she explained, urgency in her voice. Understood. Let's take the fight to them, Admiral Thompson replied. With the reinforcements arriving, the humans felt a renewed sense of strength. The Endeavor and its allies began to push forward, breaking through the enemy lines. Sarah felt the energy shift as her crew cheered, their spirits lifted by the arrival of help. Now's our chance. Forward, full speed, Sarah commanded, and the ships surged ahead, their weapons ready. As they charged into the fray, the Imperial forces were taken by surprise. The human ships attacked with ferocity, their combined strength overwhelming the Empire. We can do this. We're stronger together, Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the noise of battle. Explosions erupted around them as they fought fiercely, striking down enemy ships one by one. The crew of the Endeavor worked in perfect harmony, dodging incoming fire and returning blasts with precision. In the midst of the chaos, Varric watched in disbelief as his forces fell apart. Fall back. We need to regroup, he shouted, realizing that they were losing control. But it was too late. The humans pressed their advantage, forcing the Imperial ships to retreat. As the tide of battle turned, the fear in the hearts of the Imperial commanders grew. The mighty sword was now outnumbered and outgunned. Captain, we must leave now or we'll be destroyed, an officer urged Varric. With anger boiling in his veins, Varric gritted his teeth. We will not flee. This is our chance to show them who they are dealing with, he roared. But deep down he knew the truth. The Empire was losing, and his pride could not save him. As the Imperial forces scattered, Sarah felt a rush of triumph. We did it! We turned the tide, she shouted, joy filling the bridge. The crew erupted in cheers, their hard work paying off. But the battle was not just about winning, it was about making a statement. This is a new era for humanity, Sarah proclaimed, her voice filled with passion. We will no longer be seen as weak. The galaxy will know our strength. The crew nodded, inspired by their captain's words. They had fought not just for themselves, but for every human who had ever been underestimated. As the last remnants of the Imperial fleet fled into the darkness, Sarah knew that this was a turning point. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they would feel the consequences. Let's pursue them. We can't let them regroup, Sarah commanded. The Endeavor and its allies raced after the fleeing ships, determined to secure their victory. The journey had not been easy, and many lives had been lost, but today was a day of triumph. Humanity had proven its strength, and the galaxy would never forget it. Sarah looked out into the stars, her heart swelling with pride. This battle was just the beginning. With each victory, they were paving the way for a brighter future. A new era had begun, one where humanity would stand tall and proud among the stars.